Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. We're going to be talking about something that I think we all wish didn't exist, but unfortunately does, and that is workplace bullying. We're going to be talking about Maria's story that you sent us, and hopefully talking about it will give all of us some good strategies for how to navigate similar situations if we ever find ourselves in them.
Absolutely.
One thing that really struck me about Maria's story was how relatable it was. She's project manager and seems to be someone who really loves her work. And things are going really well until her new team lead, Kevin, joins the team.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about Kevin is that his actions are a really great example of what we call passive-aggressive bullying. Bullying isn't always this in-your-face type of aggression. It can be subtle, it can fly under the radar, but that doesn't make it any less damaging. To give you a sense of what passive-aggressive bullying can look like, it often involves these veiled insults and backhanded compliments and even deliberate exclusion. All these things are meant to undermine someone's confidence and their authority.
Yeah, and we see this play out in Maria's story because Kevin starts with these seemingly small jabs in meetings. He'll interrupt her ideas and make these kind of sarcastic comments. He'll say things like, well, that's one way to waste resources. And I mean, it's subtle. But I can only imagine how those remarks, chipped away at her confidence and made her start to question her own judgment.
Absolutely. It's a classic way to undermine authority. By publicly discrediting Maria's expertise, he's basically sending this message to the entire team that her ideas aren't valuable and they're not even worth considering.
Right. It's like he's saying she's not credible, and then it gets even more frustrating
Mhm.
because, when the team achieves this significant milestone that she was actually instrumental in,
Yeah.
he really downplays her contributions. He says stuff like, oh, well, we all know it's a team effort, so let's not exaggerate individual roles. And it's just come on. It's clear that she played a major role in this, and he's just trying to erase her hard work.
Exactly. He's trying to diminish her accomplishments and keep her from getting the recognition she deserves. This kind of behavior often stems from a need to control and maintain dominance within the team.
It's like he needs to be the one who's seen as the leader, the person with all the good ideas.
Exactly.
It's like he's trying to keep her in the shadows. And then it takes this even more concerning turn where he starts to exclude her from really important meetings. She's finding out about decisions after they've been made through these vague emails or by literally overhearing conversations in the hallway. It's like he's deliberately pushing her the fringes of the team.
Yeah, it's classic bullying tactic. It's
Yeah.
isolation. By excluding Maria, he's furthering undermining her authority and creating this sense of powerlessness.
Right? Her opinion doesn't even matter enough to be included in the conversation in the first place. And then there's this one anecdote in her story that really stuck with me. So she overhears him making a joke at her expense, and he says something like, oh, she's always so serious. Lighten up, Maria. It's not like you're saving the world or something. And of course, everyone in the room is laughing it up. But it's heartbreaking because you can almost feel the sting of that moment, the humiliation.
Yeah, public humiliation is never okay. Even if it's disguised as humor, it can be incredibly damaging. It's meant to make the target feel small and insignificant. And it's important to note that humor at someone else's expense is never acceptable in a professional setting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder how things got to this point. But what I admire about Maria is that she didn't just let it slide. She decided to take action, and I think that's so inspiring.
It is. Her response is commendable. She recognizes that she deserves to be treated with respect, and this behavior is just not okay. So instead of being silent, she takes this proactive approach to try to address the situation.
Right. So she starts by meticulously documenting every single incident. Dates, times what was said, who was present. She's creating a paper trail, basically. And I thought that was incredibly smart. So I have a question for you. If you're in a situation like this, how crucial is documentation?
Oh, it's absolutely vital. It's so important. Think of it as building a case piece by piece. You're turning subjective feelings into objective data points.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not just he said, she said. It's I have proof.
Exactly.
And so she doesn't just stop there. She reaches out to a colleague, Priya, who had also noticed this behavior from Kevin.
Yeah.
And Priya is really supportive. She validates her experience and encourages her. And I just thought that was so powerful because having that support system can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Having a support system is essential. It can be incredibly isolating to experience bullying. And having someone to talk to someone who believes you and can offer advice can make all the difference.
Totally. And Priya encourages Maria to confront Kevin directly. So she does this, she has this meeting with him and she addresses his behavior. She's calm, she's professional, she uses specific examples. She'll say things like, during meetings, my ideas are often dismissed or interrupted, or I've been left out of these key discussions. She's not attacking him, she's just focusing on the impact of his actions. So I'm curious, do you think direct communication is always the best approach?
Well, it can be a really effective first step. But it is important to assess your own situation and make sure that you feel safe before choosing this route. In Maria's case, she felt safe enough to address Kevin directly. And by doing so, calmly and assertively, she gave him a chance to understand how his behavior was affecting her. And sometimes this can actually lead to a change in behavior.
Yeah, that's an important nuance. It's not always about jumping right into confrontation, but it's more about making a judgment call based on your own safety and comfort level.
Yeah.
So how does Kevin react to her approach? Does he acknowledge his behavior?
Well, initially, no. He gets defensive and denies any intentional wrongdoing. But, because Maria came prepared with specific examples and maintained a calm demeanor, he realized that she was serious. And so he eventually agreed to try to improve communication.
Okay, so it sounds promising. It sounds like a step in the right direction. But did it actually lead to any real change?
Unfortunately, no. While his words, were reassuring, they didn't actually translate into action.
So his behavior didn't really change?
Nope, it didn't.
Oh, man, that must have been so frustrating for her. She took the initiative to address it directly, and still nothing changed. This is where I think a lot of people would feel stuck or even just give up. But what does she do?
Well, this is where we see her strength and resilience emerge. She refused to give up, and she decided to take the next step.
Okay, and that next step is?
She decides to escalate the issue to HR.
Wow, that's a big step. So what happens next? We'll find out in part 2 of this deep dive. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We left off with Maria making the decision to escalate the issue to HR after Kevin's behavior didn't change. I can only imagine how daunting that must have felt.
It is a significant step, and it often requires a lot of courage. And, it brings to light a critical element that we need to discuss, and that's the role of company culture in either enabling or combating workplace bullying.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not just about individual behavior, but it's about the environment that either allows these actions to flourish or creates a barrier against them.
Exactly. Even though Kevin was eventually held accountable, the fact that he felt comfortable engaging in this bullying behavior really speaks volumes about the company's culture before Maria took action.
Right? There must have been some level of tolerance, even if it was unintentional, for this type of conduct. Maybe people turned a blind eye or were afraid to speak up. But something allowed Kevin to operate unchecked for a period of time. So what do you think are some red flags in a company culture that might indicate a breeding ground for bullying?
That's a perceptive question. Some warning signs can be subtle, like a lack of transparency in decision-making or a culture of gossip and negativity. More overt signs might include a dismissive attitude towards employee feedback or a history of unresolved conflicts.
Okay, so thinking about Maria's company, do they have clear policies in place to address bullying?
Well, while policies alone aren't a cure-all, they do lay the foundation for a respectful workplace. They outline unacceptable behaviors and provide employees with a framework for reporting incidents and seeking support.
Right, and that's what's so interesting is that Maria's story actually demonstrates the power of those policies in action. Remember, as a result of her experience, the company implemented these stricter anti-bullying policies, and they provided conflict resolution training for the entire team. Those are pretty significant changes.
Yeah, they are encouraging outcomes. They signal a willingness to learn from past mistakes and take concrete steps to create a healthier work environment.
Okay, so they have the policies in place, but what about the actual culture? How can companies go beyond just having rules on paper and actually create a truly respectful and safe work environment?
Well, it requires a fundamental shift in mindset. A healthy company culture prioritizes respect, open communication, and what we call psychological safety.
Okay, psychological safety. What does that look like in practice?
Think of it as an environment where people feel comfortable speaking up, sharing their ideas, and even voicing concerns without fear of retaliation or judgment.
So it's not just about being nice to each other, but it's about creating a space where everyone feels heard and respected, even when they disagree or even make mistakes.
Exactly. It requires a conscious effort from leadership to model